Hi, I'm Jordan Rubin, and welcome to Ancient Medicine Today, where we teach you how to use food as medicine. And speaking of food, I'm here with childhood obesity expert Dr. Michelle Levitt, who has a mission to see our children's health transformed. And we're going to talk about how to get our kids healthy, but when we do, we get a typical comment and question. But, ... my kid, son or daughter, is a picky eater. So as you work in a hospital setting, dealing with childhood obesity, dealing with parents of obese and overweight children, you talked about statistics, 33% or 1/3 of children are overweight, 17% are obese. So clearly we've got to infuse them with good foods. But what happens when we have a picky eater? So on today's program, which is going to be unlike any we've ever done, we're going to talk about 3 ways to prevent a picky eater, I guess, from being picky,
right,
and 3 ways to get your picky eater to eat healthy. I have 6 children. You have 2 children. You start counting numbers and you're bound to have a picky eater.
right.
I have eaters that are pickier than others, and some I'll eat anything. But truthfully, every kid is picky to some extent. They like what they like. So we're going to talk about that today. So if you're somebody who has a picky eater as a child or a husband, yes, I'm going to pick on you guys because we are guilty at times, go ahead and let us know about it. Say, yes, I have 3 picky eaters. What do I do? We're going to tell you what to do. And Dr. Levitt not only has her own kids, but she helps advise others on how to get their kids over the hump from unhealthy to healthy. So let's get started. Oh my goodness, during pregnancy? I thought we were talking about kids.
Yeah.
So during pregnancy, we can prevent a picky eater baby?
Yes. So actually, during pregnancy, the mom's food preferences are actually transmitted to the baby. So it's really important how you eat during pregnancy because it will be imprinted on the baby's genome, and then it will set them up for.
That is awesome and amazing and scary.
At the same
because
time.
we know that a lot of moms have cravings, and when you're not feeling well, expectant moms, you want to eat what you want to eat. So be careful. Make sure that you're putting things into your body that you want your kids to eat later. Wow, because that's a hard time for somebody to start a health kick, so to speak.
Right,
so the best thing to do is before you get pregnant, start eating healthy so that you don't all of a sudden have to eat more broccoli when you're pregnant, because that doesn't always work so well.
Yeah, so pre-pregnancy is really important. And then also gut health is really influenced by the mom's gut health. So, so sometimes I'll even recommend that the mom actually, if she can, cuts out gluten during the pregnancy or pre-pregnancy and during the pregnancy and starts on a probiotic, which will her gut health will set up the baby for it to have good gut health. So that's been a really promising new research right now.
Avoid allergens such as gluten and maybe even certain types of dairy. I know my wife, when she was pregnant, I wanted her to consume raw grass-fed dairy because it's great to create a good milk supply, strength, etc. But most dairy is not very good. So we are going to prevent a picky eater before the eater is picky in the womb.
Exactly.
You want to prevent picky eating during breastfeeding by eating the foods that are good for you, and the baby will crave similar foods. How cool is that? Speaking of that, the next step would be breastfeeding. Tell us why breastfeeding helps to prevent picky eating.
So one of the ways is that through breastfeeding, the baby will actually get the different flavors that the mom, from what the foods that the mom eats. So the baby will actually get exposed to like sweet from the breast milk, but also maybe some bitter and some sour and some other things to their taste buds. So it actually sets them up to actually be okay with other foods.
I have an important question.
Yes.
So if the mom eats chocolate while she's breastfeeding, will the baby get chocolate milk?
No.
See, I told you that I act like a kid sometimes, but that was an interesting thought, right? I mean,
thought.
how cool would that be?
Good point.
But that's not so far off.
Right.
Because if the mom eats chocolate, the baby's getting chocolate in the milk.
Right.
But that also goes to show if the mom's consuming a lot of caffeine. We know drugs, alcohol, etc., can certainly be transmitted. Think about it. You've heard the term, and this is kind of crude, but a crack baby, right?
Right.
So it's similar when it comes to food. So you could have a donut baby.
Right.
That would not be good.
All of it, the food, the stressors, it all affects actually the gut microbiome of the baby, and the healthy gut microbiome makes the baby not be picky. So
breastfeeding can influence it's what the baby's fed. And of course, there are statistics that breastfed babies are healthier and have less cravings in general, which is important.
Yes. Because of that, so breast milk is lower in protein and lower in energy and higher in fat than formula. So formula actually has higher protein and higher energy source.
Because they have to
and
do
it kind of sets them up for already wanting like a sweet signal. So sometimes the formula-fed babies, if you're doing organic baby formula and not making your own, then I'll sometimes suggest that you rotate formulas, excluding soy, because then the baby gets different flavors.
Okay.
And like some of the hypoallergenic formulas are actually more bitter and actually taste terrible. So by rotating the formulas, the baby will get a similar thing to a breastfed baby that gets different textures.
Okay, and you can spike it with some fats.
Correct.
Put some coconut oil, put some cod liver oil, good for the brain, etc. Okay, so during pregnancy, breastfeeding, and babies learn to eat what you eat. So this is really all about the mom, isn't it? I mean, this is kind of cool and scary, but more cool because that means the mom has so much influence over what the child will grow up to want to eat.
Correct.
So you can make an unpicky eater. You can create one, and the dads can help too because you can encourage the mom. It's the worst when you're eating junk and then they want to eat it too. So do it together, be accountable. So babies learn to eat what you eat. This sounds obvious, but tell us a little bit about that.
So babies learn to eat what you eat, but more importantly, babies learn to eat what you feed them.
Got
So they'll eat what you eat because you're modeling for them and they're seeing you and you want to be eating the same food. So this is moving into the complementary feeding type stage where we're maybe exclusively breastfed for 6 months and then starting to add in solids. Or formula fed babies, trying to go as long as you can without introducing solids, definitely not before 4 months. But babies learn to eat what you feed them. So babies in Japan or toddlers are starting to eat raw fish.
Sushi.
In India, they eat curry. You know, they eat what you feed them. So that's very important to start feeding them the correct complementary foods so that they don't even know what the other things taste like to become picky.
Oh, wow, that's pretty awesome. So we're talking about prevention here. 3 ways to prevent a picky eater during pregnancy. Your food choices influence their future choices when you're feeding the child because they will get little accents of the food that you are consuming in the breast milk. And then babies learn to eat what you feed them and what you eat. We talk about complementary foods. I want to point something out that you may have missed. Don't feed solids before 4 months because you told me previously that will increase the risk of obesity by
Threefold.
Threefold.
In formula babies. So in the breastfed babies, the studies actually show there's no difference. There was actually no difference in when they introduced solids. The baby was not more likely.
So if you're bottle feeding.
But a formula fed baby, yes. Yeah.
And I've always been a fan of feeding high fat, low sugar foods first. So things like an egg yolk, warm egg yolk is great. Avocado. Chicken soup / bone broth is amazing. These are all, and you mentioned all kinds of different vegetables, purees, etc. You can buy organic baby food, but why when you can make it yourself, right? That's the best way to do it. So preventing picky eating during pregnancy, during lactation, and at their earliest chance of eating. That looks kind of yummy, and if a child will eat that, we've done pureed zucchini, because when you make sort of that chicken soup base, you can sneak pretty much any vegetable in there. All right, intervention. So we prevented a picky eater from the get-go, but now we're going to intervene on a child that faces the commercials during the cartoons. They face peer pressure in preschool and school, and they're driving by fast food restaurants every single day. So what type of attitude and environment should we foster to make sure an eater, our little eater, is not so picky?
Yeah, so the attitude is really kind of your attitude towards food. So food parenting, like the parent kind of transmits these attitudes to their child. So we want to have positive attitude towards food, a healthy relationship with food, and again, like the negative role modeling. So we're not like turning our nose up at broccoli and then expecting our kid to eat it.
Yes.
So we want to create like a positive, healthy attitude towards food. And then environment, setting our child up to win. So we basically want to set the food environment up to win. So we eat together as a family. We're all eating the same thing. No one's on one certain diet and the other one's on a different diet. So environment is really important. Also turning the screens off during eating. 1, because we just mindlessly eat more, but 2, the food commercials and the things that are influencing, why am I eating this broccoli when that commercial is showing this yummy, donut or whatever.
Yes.
So setting the environment up to influence good food choices.
Kids naturally, at least in my experience, will say things at the dinner table about food that other people are eating. And it's horrible, and I always get on my kids for that. I hate blah, blah, blah. That's disgusting. Sometimes we do let different children eat different things. We have 6, and there are different tastes, and we've adopted some children, and some of them we welcomed into our home at a latter age, and so they experience different things than we did, certainly in the womb, certainly if they were breastfed or when they were, and then when they were a child. So we give a little bit of leeway, but I do not allow my kids to say something's disgusting or yucky or I won't eat it. And when you got 6 kids, some don't like cheese, some don't like this, some don't like that. It's amazing, and they're all from, you know, sort of different genetic backgrounds. But you've got to have a good attitude towards food. And I've been, as an adult, I'm sure you experienced the same thing. I expanded my food horizon as I aged. So in fact, I never tried things like sushi before I met my wife, never ate mushrooms. There are things that I've expanded, and I still like what I like, but it's really important to have that attitude that you don't force foods on kids, but you embrace the fact, I used to not eat tomatoes, but now I do. And I love these heirloom tomatoes because X, Y, Z. And I think it's cool to celebrate the health benefits of the food.
Right, yeah. And part of the attitude towards food is just that, where you're not labeling the child, they don't like the food. Let them, maybe they don't like it today, we'll try it another time, or you didn't like it early in life, but now you like it later.
Or a different way.
Try not to label, as far as attitude towards food, try not to label the kids like, oh, they don't like broccoli. So they're never going to try it again because they'll become an adult that says, oh, I don't like broccoli.
It's like, don't knock it till you try it.
Right.
Or the old commercial, give it to Mikey, he'll eat anything, but nobody even knows what that is anymore because you're all millennials that are watching.
Wasn't that the Life cereal? Wasn't
that was. We're not supposed to mention brand names, but see, that's something different. So attitude and environment, create an environment where I would say children are rewarded not with material things, but with praise for eating different and new things. That's what we like to do. That's so awesome, Isabella, that you ate X, Y, Z. So really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, retrain the taste buds. Wow, that looks like some really interesting fare, and many of those kids will never eat. So how do you retrain the taste buds in a child that was previously eating different things? So for example, say that someone's watching and they make the decision to start eating healthy. Cut ties with the past, we're moving forward. You see a patient who's in the red zone, meaning that they've got potential health risk. How do you retrain the taste buds?
So I talk to families about this basically to like encourage them, like, hey, this is great news. Like, you might think your child's a picky eater, but we can fix this. We can retrain the taste buds. Now, this is not an easy process. It's a long process.
Okay.
So just right off the bat, you kind of have to go, okay, I'm in it for the long haul. I can do this. And the good news is you really can do it, but you just have to take the steps to do it. So basically, the retraining the taste buds is because the kids have been fed so much processed sweet foods that their palate, they're called hyperpalatable foods, where their palate will just reject anything that doesn't have that processed sweet bad fat flavor.
I want to stop you again. I know I've been stopping you many times, but this hyper palatable foods.
Yeah.
So that means the sugar, a little bit of salt, everything that would create addiction, sort of stimulatory.
Exactly.
Like a candy, you know, you like bursting with flavor. So that's hyper palatable. And anything that's real doesn't taste real, because when you eat candy, the raspberry tastes like raspberry on steroids, right? Or
Correct.
so when they're eating hyper palatable food, it makes them less appreciative of So the first step I'll do is actually look at what they're drinking, and if they're drinking sugar sweetened beverages, that's the first thing we change, because that is so sweet and sends such a powerful sweet signal to the brain that they almost can't even taste sweet anymore. And because of the addiction cycle, they actually require more and more sweetness to fix that craving, just like an addict. Wow.
So first step is retrain the taste buds, is stop doing sugar sweetened drinks, soda pop, juice, it's chocolate milk, anything that's sweet basically, iced tea, sweet tea, orange juices, Gatorades, because that's influencing the brain to keep wanting to feed that addiction. So step one is that. Then also I've noticed with families, as soon as they cut out pop, and we'll do that first, maybe that's the only thing we do for a while, because we want to empower them, they're busy, we want to make sure that they can actually implement these things and actually stay sustained with them. So we might do that just for like a couple weeks. So they come back and they're like, wow, I took a bite of an apple and it was like delicious, and because I can actually taste. And then when they go back to drinking a sweet drink, like they might go completely off them, and then at a friend's house they're like, oh, this is so sweet. So we want them to create that awareness on their own that they noticed, oh, I was like not even tasting anything before because I just want so much sweet stuff. So, and then the second step I'll do is I try to get some real whole foods in them in a simple way, without like putting a plate and being like, come on, eat this. So the one thing I'll do is actually do a green smoothie. So because we can blend lots of flavors of foods, and the body getting the nutrients, fixing the micronutrient deficiencies, stopping the cravings, will actually help the taste buds kind of reawaken.
So even, we talked about juice not being good because it's so high in sugar, but say that your kid loves orange juice. Now I know appearance is important, but you could theoretically put some veggies in orange juice and start
Yeah.
working your way
Yeah.
towards health. And in putting, believe it or not, you could put a half cup of spinach or kale or a cup in orange juice and they'll barely taste it. And they'll see it, but that's a way to start doing it inch by inch. Another way to do it would be to dilute the juice.
Right.
If you're concerned that your kids won't get off juice, dilute it. We don't let any child drink juice, even if it's raw juice, that's any more than half juice. It's got to be diluted. So that's really, really important.
Yeah, so the American Academy of Pediatrics will say no more than 4 to 6 ounces of juice a day. But
really?
Yes, but
That's good.
I completely disagree. So like I would say either no juice or dilute the juice. And then stepping down with that dilution is actually a great way to kind of wean your kids off of juice. But the most successful way is setting up your environment to win by not having it in the house. So when your child's
Fruit
like
smoothies
Yeah.
are much less sugar, higher nutrients, higher fiber. That's
Right.
cool that the American Association of Pediatrics or American Academy of Pediatrics gives a juice limit because people still think juice is healthy. Truth is, it's not.
Right.
Okay, so food rules or food rules.
Yes. Yeah.
It does rule.
Food does rule. Yes,
Yes.
it does. So food rules, these are actually they're actually for the parent
Okay,
to
listen up.
mentally meditate on so that they are strong to implement these changes with their kids. So they're not food rules like, okay, kids, let's sit down. We're going to have some rules. These are the rules. We need to follow them. They're actually more for the parent to feel empowered. Like, okay, I'm going to establish some non-negotiables of the things I'm going to do when I'm working into feeding with my kids. So I think they're on the next, the list of them. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great.
So
these are
some
food
rules that you'll kind of just establish it for yourself and your family are eat together. So sitting down at the table, we're not standing up, walking around eating in front of the TV, carrying a sippy cup around with some of our food. We're sitting together at the table and establishing a family time, which also helps with picky eating because there's that security there. Sometimes kids just want attention. So you'll be sitting together at the table, and if the parents are on their screens and the little toddler starts like flicking their food and everything, it's not because they don't like the food, it's because they want attention from their parent. So that's really important to like sit together, turn off all the screens, focus on your kids, and give them attention.
This is a big one.
Yeah, no eating in front of the TV. Again, lots of food advertisements. Also, you just tend to mindlessly eat. And typically, we're not eating like a bunch of vegetables in front of the TV. We're eating like snacky type foods that, again, just feed that addiction and make it difficult to fix a picky eater. No complaining about food. So that's one where, so a kid, maybe it's time for a family meal, and the kid's like, I'm not hungry, I'm not eating. So we say, you know what, that's fine, but you need to come to the table, and you need to have a positive attitude, and no complaining about eating, not eating.
And don't say the other kid's food is yucky.
Right.
Or disgusting.
And also for
gross.
the adults, like where the parents sit down and one of the parents is like, ew, I don't like broccoli. Or again, we're getting into the role modeling for the kids. If we're complaining about food, the kids are going to complain about food. So really important. Yeah.
Okay, this is good.
Yeah. So establishing the no thank you rule. So what I'll usually do is once we start like retraining the palate, so we get rid of the hyperpalatable foods.
HPF.
Yeah, they actually have food scientists working in the labs to create
what
could be even more
foods.
and more hyperpalatable.
Yes.
So it's really scary for our kids. But retraining the taste buds. Then we're going to start introducing these foods. So we're going to, again, kids will eat what you feed them if they're hungry. Kids will eat when they're hungry. So if they won't eat it, they're not that hungry. So
That's
you
a good
sit down.
point. Did you hear that? I got to stop you.
Yeah.
If they won't eat it, they're not that hungry. People get so concerned about what if my kids don't eat. I'm going to ask you this, and I bet I know the answer. What happens if our kids miss a meal?
They will not starve. They will survive, I promise.
Better, right?
Yes, they're probably better. So I would rather have your child miss a meal than they say they're hungry later.
really
You feed them
important.
like macaroni and cheese or pizza rolls or a corn dog or some sort of junk or snacky snack, because you're really just starving them anyways.
Well, a lot of us were taught by our parents and grandparents that if a kid doesn't eat, they're going to die. But the truth is, how to get rid of many childhood diseases is by fasting. So certainly missing a meal is no issue. So I like that. No, thank you. Good. Come sit at the table, and you're going to sit there and be nice until we're all done with a smile.
So the no thank you rule, in addition, is like, so you try to serve a food the child they like, then 2 or 3 foods that they don't like, or it's a new food. And so they have something that they're comfortable with what they like, and then you say, you have to at least try, you decide the number, 1 or 2 bites, and then you can say, no thank you, I don't want any more. But you have to decide in advance. So like, don't change it every time you eat. So if it's 1 bite or 2 bites for your family, that's what we establish. So they'll have the food, and they'll have something they're comfortable with, plus new foods, and they have to at least do 1 bite, whatever your rule is, and then they can say no thank you.
That's awesome.
That's
All right,
the
these are food rules, and I'm Jordan Rubin here with Ancient Medicine Today, brought to you by draxe.com, and I'm here with Dr. Michelle Levitt, who is an expert in childhood obesity, children's health, pediatrics, and she works in an environment where parents need to be taught how to reshape their children's healthy lifestyle. So we just got done with food rules, or not done yet. This is a big one, okay? Because I've been guilty of this as well, because we use food for a reward, for punishment, but you're saying food is not a reward.
Yeah, so food is not a reward. So you want to really be careful in saying, oh, Susie, eat your peas. After your peas, we'll go get ice cream. You don't want them to associate peas are yucky, ice cream's good. I have to force myself to eat these peas so I can have my ice cream. But also food as a reward can be also emotionally. So like your child's having a bad day or they're sad about something. Oh, let's comfort you with some food. We want to have them have a healthy relationship with food and not seek it out for comfort. So no food as a reward. And like you mentioned earlier, praising the kids when they do try the new foods and having a positive attitude surrounding the food instead of, why don't you eat that? Spinach is good for you. Lecturing, nagging them,
You never eat. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, just don't explain why the food's good. Just serve the food, eat the food, let the kid regulate their hunger and their fullness, and just let it go. Don't nag. Don't explain. Don't.
That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is a big one. Don't make them clear their plate, because a lot of us are also taught by our parents to use the old manipulative trick. Kids are starving in Africa.
Right.
You better eat your kale salad.
Yes,
and when we make organic meals, they're expensive, and you hate when kids waste. But why is it good to have a rule where you don't make them clear their plate?
So you want the kids to actually self-regulate. So you want them to know, have the feeling of hunger, and then let them know how many foods and what kind of foods do I need to eat to feel full and satisfied. So if you force them to clear their plate, they're stuffing their face after they're full, and you want them to just regulate themselves. So this is really important in toddler time, because that's a really developmental influence of letting the kid get messy. Let them just eat their food and drink without the sippy cup lid, and just let them I know it's hard, but that just helps them just have a healthy relationship with food, and then they'll self-regulate and they'll eat till they're full, and then they'll stop eating. But when they're older, you definitely don't want to force them to eat. But what I do is if they don't eat any of it because they're picky and they're resisting the food you served, I just you have them wrap that food up, set it aside. You know what? If you're hungry later, that's what you can have. And this is where protecting the home becomes very important, because if you have other foods in the house, especially if you have an older child, like my child's 15 now, so if he doesn't eat what we have for dinner and I have junk in the house, well, he can make himself his own bowl of cereal and get into it. So I have to really protect the home so that there's no other option for him to eat except for the food that he didn't eat the first time.
That makes sense. And I think this only works if you have the right plate. You have the veggies, you have the healthy meat, you've got a small amount of starch or fruit, you've got enough oils in there, because at the end of the day, kids will naturally gravitate towards what they like the most. I'm full. What's on your plate? Broccoli, green beans, and all the things we want them to eat are sitting there. So we've got to make sure that they eat in the correct order for this to work, because they could easily regulate themselves and just cherry pick, so to speak.
Right. And this is it's such an ongoing process, so it's not like that perfectly happens, these food rules every time it's just a gentle, you just have to gently, ease into it, but be persistent, don't give up, try again, and just don't give up.
Awesome. Well, here on Ancient Medicine today, we've been discussing 3 ways to prevent a picky eater and 3 ways to get your picky eater to eat healthy. We talked about prevention and then intervention. The good news is, if you prevent, you don't have to intervene as much.
Correct.
So we talked about pregnancy. Start, mom, eating the foods that you want your children to eat. Eat healthy foods. While you're breastfeeding, same thing, because they can pick up tastes within breast milk. No, if you eat chocolate, they won't get chocolate milk, but it's not far from the truth. That was an epiphany on this program. I'm so excited about that. Babies learn to eat what you eat, but also what you feed them. So be intentional on the complementary foods you give coming out of breastfeeding or bottle feeding. And here's a big one we talked about. Do not give bottle-fed babies or formula-fed babies solids before 4 months, because it would set them up to be 3 times more likely for obesity. That's staggering. That's prevention. Intervention, attitude, and environment. Make sure to create a good eating environment. We talked about things such as don't allow your kids to say things are yucky or disgusting. We made sure that the food environment is proper, okay? And it's good. And set up some of the ways to do that. We'll talk about food rules in a moment, but retrain the taste buds. If your children are used to eating junk food or sweet things, start to make simple changes. No soda would be one. Cut down on the juices, start to dilute it. Add fruit or vegetables to the juice and make a fruit or vegetable smoothie with more fiber and healthy fats, which still gives a sweet taste, but begins to retrain the taste buds. And here's something that's important to me. Give your kids some sour and bitter foods. And I'm not talking about candies that are sour, but bitter is good for digestion. Sour helps to blunt the appetite. Today, all we do is salty and sweet.
Right.
We've got to give our kids those fermented foods, those bitter foods. That's why greens are so important. And food rules. There were some really good food rules that we talked about to create an environment of success. Bottom line, folks, we don't need to say, I would eat healthy, but I've got a picky eater. I would start this program, but my kid's picky. I know what you're saying about this being kid-friendly, but it won't work for mine. There are ways to do this, and Dr. Michelle Levitt's here to help. So if you're interested in the information we shared today about how to prevent a picky eater and how to make sure a picky eater becomes less picky, visit drmichellemd.com. You can learn great tips, sign up for an upcoming class, and Dr. Michelle can coach you and your family virtually or in person if you're in the northeastern Ohio area. And of course, visit drax.com, visit our Facebook page and our Instagram for dozens or hundreds of healthy recipes. We talked about smoothies. We talked about soups and stocks and meals and desserts. drax.com is the leading authority in healthy eating because we believe food is medicine. So on behalf of Dr. Michelle Levitt, our guest all the way from northeastern Ohio, I'm Jordan Rubin. I hope you enjoyed Ancient Medicine today. And if you're a mom or dad or know someone who is, send this link. Click that share button so they can have great information. And make sure to check out Dr. Michelle Levitt at drmichellemd.com. Dr. Michelle, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great.
Appreciate it. And we wish you the best on your quest to end childhood obesity and empower families to be healthier one bite at a time. God bless you. See you next time.